What is and for Andy? The band just is dysfunctional today. Welcome to Friday 15, everyone. This is Brian Beck. I'm here with Andy Hoar, my partner in crime here at Master B2B with the dysfunctional band. I don't know. Anyhow, we got a great session today, folks. We're going to be talking all about e-commerce platform selection and Andy's recently released 2025 Combine Paradigm B2B Combine. Andy, great to be here with you on Friday, midsummer.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled to chat about the Combine here. We just released it on Wednesday, some pretty interesting stuff, and so let's jump right in.
Yeah, so what I love about this, Andy, this combine it's a very practical tool, that practitioners can use to guide their way through this platform selection issue. I mean, I was just talking to a VP of e-commerce yesterday, Andy, at a very large company, and he's going through a replatforming. I asked him, what do you have budgeted for this? How much time do you expect it to take? He said it's $6 million over the next 2 years. $6 million. Stakes are high here, folks. I've lived this myself. I've replatformed twice in 1 year back early in my career. And guess what? Cost me my freaking job because I didn't do some of the things that Andy's going to share. This is real. The stakes are high. So let's get into it. Let's talk context first. We asked our LinkedIn audience, how will you be enhancing your e-commerce platform solution this year? Right. And we offered 4 options. And what's interesting here was it really spread across different. We asked, hey, are you going to replatform, tune what you have? And it was really quite an even split. So replatform said about 38%, replacing portions or modules, 31%, tuning what we have was no 31%. Only 0% said they're making no changes. That's fascinating, right, Andy? I mean, so we've got folks that are obviously working on this issue. Tell us about the process that most folks go through here as it relates to replatforming, Andy.
Yeah, just as a refresher, so the Combine is an evaluation of the leading platforms in the space, but you're not going to get to that point unless you've done some homework ahead of time. And so just a quick refresher here. I always say that you got to start with your vision of the experience that you intend to create for your customers 2 to 3 years into the future. And whenever I say that, people's eyes roll. They're like, "Oh, that's so hard to do. Who knows?" I'm like, well, better to have some idea than no idea, because remember 3 years ago, nobody even heard of ChatGPT. So if you weren't incorporating that capability into what you're doing now, then you'd be way behind everybody else. So it's important to think ahead. There's also the process of gathering the requirements. That's a whole art form. I've worked with companies who have you in the past to make sure they get the right requirements. Wrong input, wrong output. You got to select a partner and a platform. There's a whole process around that. We've talked a bit about that one. Then you got to implement and iterate. Iterate is the critical piece here. It's not a project, it's a program, and it's in constant evolution, which is why it really pays to think ahead. There's an image on the screen here of a kid whose pants are too tight and the other one of the pants are too big. This is the problem I think most people make, is they don't think ahead for whatever reason. They don't envision what it's going to be, and then they buy the wrong platform. And then again, like the kid there, or my favorite analogy is the car, where on screen you can see a Honda Odyssey, which is kind of a minivan, and a Lamborghini Countach. They both have wheels, they both have engines, they both have seat belts, they will both get you from point A to point B. However, if you're going to be driving the kids around, you don't want to shove them into a Countach. And if you're going to be racing your friends, not going to use a Honda Odyssey. What we often see, and you were chatting about this ahead of time, is that people fuse the two together, and they do so very poorly. So here's an AI rendering of a Honda Odyssey Countach. And as you can see here, it looks cool, but it's completely impractical. It would cost ridiculous amounts of money, and it wouldn't work. Does that sound familiar?
It does, Andy, and frankly, yeah, I love the analogy there. But again, you've come out with this, this combine, which helps people to very practically, assess the universe. One of the challenges I always had, Andy, in doing this work was figuring out, what is the right universe to start with, right? How do you create a universe that is in the ballpark at a more detailed level than sort of the traditional analyst reports provide, which are composite scores. It's very high level. It's good information, but at the end of the day, really, what you've created here with your combines, and you have them for both enterprise and mid-market companies, is a practical guide. And what I love about it is you get down into details and allow people to assess based on their capabilities and needs, in kind of a categorization methodology, to create that list. Why don't you tell us a little more about it?
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that because that's what I've always aimed for, and hopefully it's hitting the mark. So yeah, there's two of these. If you next slide, you can see that there are 9 companies in the enterprise evaluation and 12 companies, or 13 companies, I should say, in the mid-market. I define the mid-market as $50 to $500 million in total revenue. So if you're a company that has $425 million in total revenue, not online revenue, total revenue, then you should be looking at a mid-market solution.
If you're a manufacturer distributor, that's not the
Yes.
vendor that you're talking about. That's the practitioner.
Yes.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you're a company that has, say, $2-3 billion in total, annual revenue, then you should be looking at an enterprise solution. There are some companies that play in both markets, and there are also some companies that only play in either enterprise or mid-market. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But
what I love about this, Andy, too, is that you've got all the leading platforms in here, and there's hundreds of options, I know, but you've got your really the top of the market here for the most part, right? So that's really great.
Yeah, and so the Combine process itself, just very quick overview of that. There are 12 different categories, and I know you and I were joking about this ahead of time. The Magic Quadrant from Gartner and the Wave and the IDC MarketScape, they're fine pieces of research. I used to do the Wave, as you know, when I was at Forrester, but there really are only 4 options for that. There are like 4 quadrants, and in effect, jokingly, there are really only 2 quadrants. There's the leader quadrant and everybody else. And I call it the leader loser metaphor. I mean, that's
Right.
what vendors have always told me. If I'm not in the leader category, I don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
When you have 12 different categories like I have here, you've got product and non-product stuff, then there's an opportunity to zero in on who's world-class in a particular area. And I actually did the math. There are 16.7 million different combinations that are possible.
Wow. That's incredible.
With all these 12 categories and 4 metals and 3 metals and no metal as an option in each of the categories. So that's a lot of different things, which seems to be more fitting of B2B, which is a lot more complex. I don't think you can boil it down to a simple 2x2. I get why they do it, but I also feel like that's more for the vendors. When I talk to practitioners, none of them say, "Oh yeah, give me 2 options or just 4 options."
Andy, as having spent almost 20 years as a practitioner, the things that you're evaluating here are very practical, right? So I look at this and I say, hey, I want to understand how capable this company is with site search, with promotions, with cross-channel enablement, and even in things like what is their roadmap, what's their vision, can they execute, what's their total cost, what's my total cost of ownership, how should I be thinking about that? I mean, these are all really critical elements that I need to know in going into this process and narrowing the field to a set of candidates for my replatforming. So again, very practical, and love that.
Well, and there are 3 quickly, there are 3 components to this. You can see on screen, there is an evaluation page, and it's a product analysis page, and it's a 1-pager. So in this regard, I think brevity does matter. And I give you 1 page on each one of the companies. I talk about their pricing, their go-to-market pricing model, which is also really important, which is not well understood oftentimes. Strengths, weaknesses, bottom line. It's all based on interviews with customers, partners, and of course the vendors themselves. Then they get a scoring page where each of the 12 categories, they can get a gold, silver, bronze, or no medal. And nobody's ever gotten all gold medals, and nobody's ever, of course, gotten no medals in each category. But you can see there, this is the 16.7 million different combinations that are possible. But I boil it down to 1 page. And then lastly, each of these categories, you mentioned them earlier. There's partner, there's search, there's marketplaces, etc. And we list who the gold, silver, and bronze companies are in each of those categories as well. And that's as close as I get to comparing the vendors to one another, which I really just don't, I reject that almost outright. I don't think it's helpful to put all these people in one place and say, okay, because when I did the Forrester Wave, I'll be honest here, I used to have vendors screaming about moving 1/10 of a millimeter to the left, or all I care about is beating the other guy. And I'm like, that's great. And I appreciate why you're doing that. But none of the practitioners care about that. The people buying your technology don't care if you're 1/10 of a 1/100th of a millimeter
Oh,
ahead
yeah.
of so and so.
Yeah, and you know, look, at the end of the day, what do we use those things for as practitioners? It's again to create kind of a long list of who are the potentials, and I'd much rather create that list based on some practical, more detailed understanding. And this is all very digestible. So, Andy, you've been evaluating platforms for what, 15 years,
Yeah,
probably,
about
maybe more.
15 years, 7 right now on just the combine alone.
So what's really interesting? Okay, so you've been through this whole process. You talked to 8 trillion companies, and you know you evaluated all these guys. You probably spent, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of hours on this. So I'm curious. You know, what are some of the findings? You know, in terms of what you know. So what'd you take away from this? You know, where
Yeah,
are
so
we?
I call these the atmospherics, which is sort of what's happening in the space. And there are about 6 areas here that I would just cover very quickly. One is that among the vendors, if I'm being perfectly candid, there are many solid choices, but between this year and last year, nothing really game changing or radically new. We do have some companies that are doubling down. A lot of companies are getting very interested in B2B. I think partly because they're exiting B2C more than they're running to something, or from something versus to something.
Right.
Doesn't mean that that there aren't really good options. I'm just saying versus last year, nothing radically new. Number two, everybody's nailed the promotions and the pricing part. When you look at the research, everybody gets a gold or silver medal for that because they've been at that for a decade now. And it's like, if you can't do promotions and pricing, what's wrong with you? So pretty much everybody's nailed that one.
Okay.
The biggest issue, bar none, about the vendors themselves and their viability is whether they can cost effectively acquire customers. What do I
You're
mean by
talking
that?
about you're talking about the vendors acquiring customers, right?
Yes.
So why
Yeah,
does that matter
because
to the practitioner? What if I don't care.
well, it matters because you're making a bet on whether this company is going to be around in a couple of years, and they may have a really cool technology. They may even have some money, but if that technology and that money doesn't translate into you ever hearing about them or
That's true.
to a
Okay.
systems integrator ever actually supporting them,
Yeah.
then it's the tree that falls in the forest. I just talked to a company a week ago, couple $1 million, cool technology. And I said, this is all great, but what's your channel to reaching customers? And they
Mhm.
just kind of went, well, we've got money and we've got a product. I'm like, that ain't going to cut it. Nobody's ever going to hear from you. And by the way, no SI is ever going to put you into practice. So what else you got? And I
Right.
hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I mean, I cover 20 some odd companies. I've been doing this for 15 years. You know how many of those companies I just described have come along and
Yeah.
then disappeared 2 years later?
Right.
So I can't advise the 3Ms of the world, the Grangers, the Fastenals of the world to, hey, work with this company. They got some money and they've got a cool technology. And they say, well, are they going to be around in 5 years? Probably not.
Well, that's why you know, the roadmap, the ability to execute, all those other elements, which are, you know, they're more qualified than quantifiable, but those are why that's so important to incorporate into this. What else did you find?
Yes, I've mentioned the channel. There's really not, I don't see a lot of movement in the channel in terms of the global systems integrators adding new practices, except for Shopify. Everybody's kind of exploring that possibility. But
Right.
again, the reason this matters is because if the SIs are not adding practices, then you're not going to find a
Interesting.
market as a software vendor for people to be implementing your technology. There's some verticalization going on, mostly around the large vendors who are now, have accelerators for a particular industry.
Yep.
But I think that's overdone. That's really only viable for companies that are more mature and in the late stage and already have an established kind of business. Um, I do want to make this point. This next year is going to be different.
How so?
Um, well, because AI is only starting to enter this space.
Hmm.
And the standard for the platforms next year is going to be different.
In
I
your
want to
comment.
see a lot more AI
Hmm.
native. I want to see a lot more AI capabilities. I want to see agentic stuff. That has not really penetrated this market yet. But when
Really?
you hear about things like Just as an example, OpenAI is now going to be introducing a like a shopping cart metaphor, and they're going to be demanding kind of like Shop Pay, Apple Pay, Google Pay. They're going to get in on that. There's also strong arguments that bots are going to be doing a lot of the buying. And if that's the case, then it calls into question what the website's value is. And of course, the website comes oftentimes from the e-commerce platform, the CMS, right?
Right.
So this is happening very quickly. And so this agentic AI part needs to be a part, and this is kind of a warning shot, needs to be a part of every vendor's portfolio.
Interesting. So no, that, I mean, yeah, the age of AI. I mean, they've got to be talking about it though, Andy, right? I mean, everyone's,
Oh, there's plenty of talk. And there's a
but
little bit of action, which I'll talk about in a moment, but the action's not matching the talk at this point.
Interesting. So it hasn't really arrived, and AI hasn't arrived yet. Got it.
It hasn't.
But next year it has to. Yeah. Yeah.
The speed at which this is going, I mean, it just has to be there, and it has to be there in more than just a minor bolt-on way. Okay, so what are some of the other kind of conclusions that I was able to draw? Well, time and complexity are out. This seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised. We were hearing as recently as last year that everybody wants to do like, very composable stuff, and they've got teams of people who want to customize everything. No, I'm not hearing much of that. Even in the enterprise space where they have more resources, they still want a lot of this stuff to be pre-configured, potentially pre-built. They want to compose what they want to compose, but they don't want to compose everything.
We're going right back to full stack, aren't we?
Well, I don't know. I'm not prepared to say that, but I think we're seeing a hybridization here where it's like getting started with full stack sort of pre-built stuff and then composing what you want to do later. Shopify is getting traction, but ironically enough, in my estimation, from the vendors, I'm not hearing a legion of practitioners asking for Shopify and B2B. I am hearing the vendors worried that Shopify is going to take share. I hear this in the form of like when Walmart moved into a town that all the other retailers said we're done, or if Amazon launches a new category. I think that's the fear. So Shopify does have some good functionality, but I do think the truth about them is they have not yet penetrated this space. It's still a work in progress. And that the discussion here amongst the vendors about what Shopify could be doing to the space, I think is overblown at this point. I need to see more myself. I've lived long enough to see companies enter space, exit a space, enter space again. Shopify has done a little bit of that, to be honest. They entered a couple of years ago, then they backed off a little bit, and now they're entering again. I think this time they are more serious, but based on the fact that I'd seen what happened before, they have to do a little more to prove to me that they're planning to stay here, not just on a temporary basis, but a permanent basis. I think they are.
I mean, they've announced some pretty significant brands that are using them, right? Was it Carrier Enterprise is one, isn't it? No, there's several others that they've deployed.
There are a couple. And again, the functionality is there, and they've got an army of thousands of developers. But for example, those developers are not specific to B2B. They have an army of developers, which is great, but they're not really specific to B2B. And we know that B2B is different, and you can't just develop functionality and put it out there and it's going to work for everybody.
Right.
So that's one of the areas where I'm still looking. Pricing, it's interesting. All the pricing is performance-based now. There's really nothing anymore that's based on the number of cores or any of that kind of stuff anymore. It's all migrated over.
All of them are. Wow, interesting. Okay. Yep.
And a couple are actually building AI or agentic consumption models, and like Salesforce is an example of that, where you buy credits to be able to do AI stuff. We're going to see a lot more of that, and I expect to see that in almost every model next year.
Interesting. Okay.
The last point I would make here is Adobe. Where is Adobe? I've been asking around. I don't know what you know, but they seem to be like the teenager who wandered off. I mean, I don't really know where they are in this space. I've asked, I've tried, I've talked to people. If anybody listening to this can give me some insights into it, what exactly is their strategy at this point? And are they, what are they trying to do in commerce? Because they were the father. I mean, they bought Magento a couple of years ago. First of all, the word Magento has sort of been banned from everybody's lips. Why? Adobe, there's Adobe Commerce and they sell it, but I'm not
Right.
hearing much about it. Are you?
No, I'm not. But again, I'm not as close to the space as you are these days, Andy. But yeah, Magento was, back in the day, Harbor Freight Tools, where we launched Magento, built the whole business. It was the buzz. And it was practical too. And people were using it. There's probably still a very large install base. So interesting to see. We'll see where things go there with Magento. Yeah, let's hey Adobe, if you're listening, hey, tell us what's going on.
Well, Jeff Ugerheim commented here about, he's like, hey, you forgot about SAP Commerce Cloud. No, I didn't forget about SAP Commerce Cloud. They opted out this year. I don't want to speak on their behalf,
Yeah,
but I think the reason why is because they've kind of gone to ground and they're sort of reinventing the platform to some extent.
yeah,
And so I think they're opting, they better be there next year,
right.
or I'll be talking about them the way I'm talking about Adobe right now.
Okay.
But I know from channels on the inside and news sources that they just decided to opt out this year, which I never think is a smart idea. But
Yeah,
at least they communicated that
yeah.
versus Adobe.
Oh, yeah, and
Uh,
we know where they stand. They've been involved in some of our master B2B stuff
yeah,
too, so that's good. So
yeah.
so net it out in terms of different. How are these platforms differentiating, Andy?
Yeah, so I always say there are basically 5 ways to differentiate, and I would just list them here. There's based on the product, based on
Yep.
the pricing model, based on geography you operate in, based on the customer slash market, and then
Mhm,
also based on the channel. These are
mhm.
not all equally valuable. So in the product space,
Sure.
you've got companies like Oro that have like a 3-in-1 where they've got they've got a CRM, they've got OMS, and they've got e-commerce. That's different. That's unique. You got people like Optimizely who focus on experimentation. That's unique.
Right.
Unilog is very focused on PIM centric stuff, and so that's a
Mhm.
strength of theirs. Znode is quite good at multi-store,
Yep.
and Spryker, by the way, is sort of seen as a company that's pretty flexible in terms of their approach. So those companies are differentiating based on product. Pricing model is a big one, but funny enough, nobody that I've seen, save for what I just said about Salesforce, nobody there is differentiating based on their pricing model. The pricing models have all
It's
harmonized around,
commoditized, right? Yeah, it's all
yeah,
the
it's
same.
GMV or number of orders, transactions. Remember how Demandware back in the day
Oh
had
yeah,
that
of
very
course.
different pricing
IE.
model?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything like that. Now, again, once we head into agentic, that could be something that's different. What if somebody prices the entire model based on tokens?
Right.
For example, that could be coming soon, and that could be really interesting.
What about?
Geography, there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say what else? What other elements?
Yeah, so geography, there are really 3 companies that focus on that. You got companies like Shopware and Intershop, really in Europe, although both operate in the United States. Vtex in Latin America. These are traditional
Right.
focuses. All of them have other capabilities, and all of them operate in the U.S. But just traditionally, those are areas where they've
Yep.
dominated. And then on the customer market end of things, you got companies like Commerce Tools and HCL that really focus on the IT buyer. Both of them want to be focused on business buyers, but traditionally that's where they've made their bones. You
Right.
got Salesforce that focuses on the marketing. I mean, how often have we heard this? We use several clouds, marketing, sales, customer service, data, whatever all of them are. And we added the Commerce Cloud
Right.
because it's a marketing decision to do that.
Yep.
And then also you got companies like Miva and Rock, which really focus on the mid-market. They're tailor-made for mid-market. So there you go, like a customer thing. The last one is channel. And I say this for last because to me, it's the most important one. I
Okay.
mentioned this earlier. If you don't have a channel by which you can reach customers, meaning the vendors, cost effectively, or if they don't hear of you, then what do you do? And so I'd say BigCommerce and Shopify, I think Salesforce also belongs in that category, have pretty big channels through
Yep.
which they can push a lot of different product. Some good, some great, some not so good, not so great. But if you have a channel, at least you have a way of reaching customers. SAP has this too, really, with their ERP backend. But if you don't have a channel,
Hmm.
then you have to do all of this heavy lifting to acquire customers. They have to know who you are. They have to hear about you reputationally. They have to try you out. They have to decide to use you.
Yep.
Versus the guys with the channels, love it or hate it, can put something out and people will try it and they'll use it probably because they're using the other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a huge advantage.
Well, I
Is to
think
have
it speaks to the importance of doing a thorough job and having a partner work with you. I mean, we talked about this in past Friday 15s, Andy, where having a partner that goes maybe isn't your SI help you with your platform selection process. I used to do this work. You used to do this work. I don't do it anymore. I don't have any time, but there are people out there that will help you with your platform selection and understanding the universe. And Andy, you've got a great resource here. For time's sake, we gotta kind of tell people where to go get this awesome piece of work, which is on your LinkedIn, right? Is this where they should go download it, or how do they get it?
Go to search me on LinkedIn. I'm sure most people here are connecting me on LinkedIn, and there are various
Right.
ways you can do it. I don't sell the platform. I don't sell the Combine. I only make it available through the vendors who buy reprints. That's how I monetize it. Very
Sure.
upfront about that. It doesn't affect anybody's decision. They don't make a decision on that till after I do it.
Yep.
Some people
Okay.
don't love what they get. They decide not to buy reprints. That's fine. And some people, by the way, buy reprints even if they don't get the greatest
Sure.
review. So that's how I do it. Go to their websites, download it for free from them, and you can get it from my LinkedIn page.
Yeah, you got a whole list of links there. All right, well, good stuff. Let's do a couple quick announcements, then we got to wrap our Friday 2025 plus. Oh my goodness. Folks, thank you, Andy. That was really, really insightful. Folks, we have our Nexus program. Want to make sure that you are aware of this. This program is brought to you by Nexus. Our Nexus program is your personal B2B digital lifeline. We offer expert advice exclusively for B2B e-com executives. This is a paid program, and our membership is growing on this. And so we encourage you to check it out at masterb2b.com. Go to Nexus. And see how we can help you quickly make decisions and avoid mistakes. We connect you with peers and experts. It's a fantastic solution. Also, our forum, free for practitioners only. Go to our website, masterb2b.com, and look up forum and sign up for that. We have conversations. There was another post this morning, actually, interestingly, about e-commerce platforms. People asking questions and trying to understand the best solution. And finally, I wanted to just highlight again for you that remind you that this and every one of our Friday 15 sessions is available in podcast form on your favorite podcast service. Just go to Spotify, Google, Apple, our website, YouTube, etc. Type in Master B2B Friday 15 and you will find us, and please give us a review. We would greatly appreciate that. So, Andy, I'm not even going to give you a chance to say anything because we're almost at half an hour here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again for Friday 15. We will see you next week for another session. Thanks for joining.